Welcome to this With Joy tutorial. This tutorial demonstrates how to use the free online photo editing software, Photopea, to add your digital artwork to a mockup. Photopea is perfect for those who do not have Adobe Photoshop. Photopea allows you to open and edit Photoshop documents, also known as PSD files, and provide similar, albeit more basic, editing functions and features. However, for adding digital artwork to a mockup, Photopea's functionality is just perfect. This tutorial will show you how to access your mockup files, both your PSD file and your JPEG file, open the PSD file in Photopea, add your digital artwork to the mockup by locating and using the Smart Object layer. It'll also show you how to crop and resize the mockup and create a listing image for Etsy by exporting your mockup as a JPEG file from Photopea. So let's get started. With the assumption that you've been to Etsy following your purchase and downloaded your digital file, we're going to head on over to the downloads folder. Now I'm using a Mac, so I can explore my documents via Finder. If you're using a Windows machine, you'll be using Windows Explorer. Either way, head on over to your downloads folder. Now here is my With Joy PDF. This is the document you'll get once you've made your purchase from Etsy. Double click to open the document. You'll find lots of useful information, but today let's focus on opening those files and using that Smart Object layer with Photopea. If you double click here, you'll be navigated towards a shared online folder. Etsy has limits on the file size that you can upload for digital products. And Photoshop is a very large file. It has lots of information, lots of functions and features. Likewise, a high resolution JPEG both exceed the file size for uploading directly to Etsy. This is why you've been given access to an online shared folder where you can download those documents. If you double click on the JPEG, you will be given a preview and you can go ahead and open. Now, again, this is just an example, so it won't be the exact same mockup you've purchased. Now, if you double click on the Photoshop document, you'll see there's no preview available. Photoshop is a much more complicated program, so it can't preview the same way your browser can preview JPEGs. Now, depending on which browser you're using, it might look slightly different, but all work in a similar way. If you've been given access to a shared folder, you can double click on the files in that shared folder and be prompted to download. Let's go ahead and download. As Photoshop produces very large files, your browser may not be able to scan those for viruses because the file is too big. Because it's a Photoshop document, it's very low risk. You don't have to worry, so you can click download. Being a large file, you will have to wait a little while. Could be a few seconds, could be a minute for the file to download. Very much also depends on your internet speed. Let's head on back to the download folder and see how that's getting on. It's been, 5-10 seconds. We're about halfway there. We've got like a little egg timer type feedback on how the download is progressing. Almost there. So you can see at the moment the title is unconfirmed because again, it hasn't downloaded all the information. You will get an alert from your browser normally saying that a document has been downloaded. And shortly after that, you'll see that the title of your mockup has populated. So your file is now ready. Okay, so now we need something to open this. Photopea is a fantastic tool for people who do not have Photoshop. Photoshop is wonderful. It's got lots of features and functionality, but it is expensive. And if you're not using it all the time, who needs that? I'm going to show you now how to use Photopea to open up a Photoshop document. We've already got a browser tab open. So I'm going to go here and type in Photopea. Now I'm going to double click to open the Photopea online photo editor. I'm going to do a new project. I'm going to go and search for my recently downloaded Photoshop documents. I'm going to go to File and then to Open. And this is going to bring up a dialog box of my computer. And then I can go back to my downloads. And there's that Photoshop document that I've just downloaded. I'm going to double click and that will open in Photopea. Now I'm getting a couple of warning messages because I have my ad blocker activated. We're just going to close that for now. Here we are in Photopea with the With Joy mockup open. The most important functionality that we're going to be using to embed your artwork into this mockup using Smart Object layers is the Layers panel over here. Now, just in case it's not already open, when you open Photopea, you can go to Window and down to Layers, and that'll make sure that this panel over here is visible, just in case it's not, just so you don't get confused. Okay. Now, the most important of these 3 layers is this one in the middle, your design here. This is where we're going to go to embed your digital artwork into this photo so it looks realistic, it looks like it's been printed. Here you actually have a little icon, a thumbnail, so we're going to double click and that will take us to the smart object where we can place your artwork. So double click here. And here we go. You might notice at the top, we've actually opened a new tab. The old one's still open, and here is a new tab with the smart object layer. So now we want to place your artwork. So we're going to go to File and to Open and Place. Now you would have had your artwork saved somewhere on your computer. I've saved a piece of example artwork on my desktop. So I'm going to scroll down and double click to place that artwork here. As you can see, it's opened a bit small, so I'm just going to click the corner and drag to resize. Same again at the bottom. Make sure you completely resize. Don't leave any white sort of edge, otherwise that'll pull through and it won't look quite right. So resize right up to the edge of the boundary box. When you're happy, press enter. Now, you might have noticed that behind this we had the placeholder, so you can either hide that, or if you're completely finished with the placeholder, you're not going to need it again, you can just drag it down to the bin there. So for the sake of this example, I'm just going to hide it. Again, you don't really need to worry because the placeholder is stacked completely behind your artwork, so it's not going to show through anyway. I know some people like to keep their layers nice and tidy, so that's just a quick example of how to hide or delete. So once we're happy, we've got our artwork, it's been resized, so it's filling the space correctly. We're going to save. It's a really important step that you press save at this point. So either Control and Command S, or you can go over to File and Save Smart Objects. Where's that gone? There we go. Save Smart Object. Okay. Smart Objects has been updated. Fantastic. Now, when we head back to our mockup, you will see that instead of the placeholder, we have the artwork. Now, the fantastic thing about smart object layers, if they're used correctly by the person who has designed the mockup, you will have the white balance adjusted. So instead of having something that's quite digital looking, slapped on top of a photo, the white balance of your artwork will be adjusted so it looks like the lighting is the same, that it's been printed out and photographed. Likewise, card has natural flex. A card element will have a bit of perspective where perhaps the bottom is slightly closer to the camera than the top. And all of those tweaks have been made by the designer of the mockup so that you don't have to worry about it. You can just place your artwork and all of those adjustments are made. I'll just quickly show you what it would look like without the white balance adjustments. Very bright white, very digital. If I put those adjustments back on, you can see this is the benefit of a well-made mockup. You will find that there are now mockups, big bundles, very cheap, and quite often you'll find that many of these mockups, the smart object layer hasn't been done very well. So your digital artwork doesn't look native and natural, just looks like a piece of digital artwork plonked on top of a photo. So this is why it's worthwhile getting a good quality mockup. So hopefully with this good quality mockup, you'll be very pleased with how your digital artwork looks when it's presented to your end user on your Etsy shop. So moving on, let's have a look at how one would export this artwork, this mockup, in the correct file type so you can upload that to Etsy. So Etsy prefers JPEGs for listing images, and you can also have a choice between a rectangle or a square. I personally prefer to work with squares for listing images. Again, it's completely down to your preference. Just check the Etsy guidelines and make sure you're getting the right pixel by pixel size and being consistent. In order to change the shape and the aspect ratio of the image, we can use the crop tool. So the crop tool's over here. So if you click the crop tool, at the moment it's set to free, but you can click here and you can have a fixed ratio. Square, it's 1:1. Okay. Or you could go for a rectangle, commonly used 4:3. And if you click the little arrows in between the height and width measurement, it will flip it around as well. Okay, so you can have your rectangle either way. So I'm going to go back to using a square. Again, you can drag the corners in. So you might want your listing image to have your artwork taking up most of the space, or you might prefer to have more background, more of the mock-up features. So again, it's down to your taste, the way you present your artwork, how you use your mock-ups, but you can play around and move the cropping tool around until you're happy. So for example, you might want the mock-up slightly towards the bottom. You might be using the rule of thirds and you might want it across one of the running third lines so it's a little bit more visually interesting. But you decide. Once you're happy, you can press enter and your image has been cropped as you chose. So the next thing we want to do is to export this as a JPEG. So if you just did Control Save, you'd end up saving a Photoshop document. And again, that's not what you want. You want a JPEG for your Etsy listing image. Let's head on over and go to File. And then you want to go down to Export As. And now you have these different file type options. So you're going to export as a JPEG. Now with Photopea, it doesn't have as many options as Photoshop, but it has a few. So you can play around with the width. So you could go for 2000 by 2000 or 2500 by 2500. Okay, and it's updated because it's a square, so it took a little while. Again, free software can be a little bit slow as it's all working over the internet because it's a free browser-based software. Anyway, once you're happy with your pixel by pixel width and height, you could perhaps try playing around with the quality. Again, be aware, Etsy has a limitation on the file size that you can upload. So you don't want to exceed that and go to the maximum quality, the highest resolution, and find that your file size is several megabytes. I think it actually needs to be below a megabyte. So you could probably go to somewhere between medium high for your file size. Perfect. Okay. Once you're happy, click save and that will save to your downloads. Again, a little message about using an ad blocker. It's still letting me use the software. It's very kind. Okay, so if we go back to our downloads folder, you will see that you now have a JPEG. Let's double click that and have a look. Fantastic. So that's opened in my preview. It will open in whatever your native image preview tool is on your machine. So hopefully this video tutorial has helped you to understand how to access your files, as well as how to use the Smart Object layer to embed your artwork and how to save that then as a JPEG ready for a listing image. If you've had any problems or challenges and you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out via Etsy Messenger and I'll be very happy to support you. I'd also be super grateful if you would leave a review and even more so if you can share a picture of your digital artwork being shown off in your With Joy mockup. That would be fantastic. Hopefully this has been helpful. And again, thank you for your With Joy purchase.